you want to offer sports bets, fine. Just follow the rules in the location where they have been set. And, something else is, if we don't stop it now or put some guardrails on now, today it's poker, tomorrow they'll figure out a way, because you can always figure out a way with computers and AI how to do slot machines online or how to play dice online. It will just multiply from here till it covers all of gaming.
This podcast is sponsored by Pragmatic Solutions, the player account management platform chosen by today's smart betting and gaming operators. Don't let technical constraints delay you from achieving your business goals. Expand your business, boost your margins, and dominate the market in any leading regulated jurisdiction with our powerful, flexible, and secure iGaming platform. Enjoy its extensive marketing tools, compliance protection, real-time data, and a wide portfolio of over 1,000 industry providers. It's time to upgrade your technology. Let Pragmatic Solutions show you the modern approach. Visit pragmatic.solutions and join the smart thinkers.
This podcast is brought to you by Pragmatic Play, a leading game developer providing player favorites to the most successful brands across the industry. With an award-winning multi-product portfolio of slots, live casino, bingo, virtual sports, and more, Pragmatic Play is powering up new possibilities of play through one single API. Visit pragmaticplay.com and discover your favorite every time.
Today's guest is someone who sits right at the intersection of politics and gaming policy in the United States. Congresswoman Dina Titus represents Nevada's 1st District, home to Las Vegas, which means that she doesn't just talk about gaming industry, she represents the epicenter of it. Over the years, she's become one of the most vocal advocates for fair regulation, sensible tax policy, and protecting both operators and players in the evolving US betting landscape. Most recently, the Congresswoman introduced the Fair Markets and Sport Integrity Act, a bill which is designed to shut down the ability of prediction market operators like Kalshi and Polymarket to offer sports-based event contracts. But before we dive into the policy and what's at stake, Congresswoman Titus, welcome to the Next.io podcast. I'd love for you to tell our audience more about your background, how you got into politics, and why gaming policy has become such a central part of your work.
Well, first, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. I represent District 1 in Southern Nevada. And as you described it, it is the heart of the action. Some people think it's the most exciting place in the world. It includes the Las Vegas Strip, the Raiders, the Aces, everything that's exciting about hospitality and entertainment. So it's a very interesting and challenging place to represent. I'm in Congress. I've been here since 2008 representing this area, but that's really an avocation. My vocation is a professor of political science at UNLV. So now I guess I am kind of practicing what I preached all those years. I can tell you, though, I could just throw those notes away because what's happening today is unprecedented, and all those things I taught may not be relevant anymore.
Yeah, oh my God, it's they say it's the curse of living in interesting times, as they say.
Exactly.
But the wider politics aside here today, I'm curious to dive into the Fair Markets and Sports Integrity Act. So this is a bill that you published recently in essence to kind of thwart the progress of the likes of Kalshi and Polymarkets here. So I want to talk a little bit about what, from your perspective, are the core issues with this sport prediction markets concept that have become very popular in recent time.
Well, yes, I co-chair the Gaming Caucus as well as representing Las Vegas and representing sports books, and a lot of investment that has been made in legalized, regulated gaming. Now, it's not just the industry that I'm protecting, it's the people who work there. You know, gaming it employs a lot of people. I can give you some figures here, not just in my district, but all around the country, because now gaming is in every state but 2, and sports betting is in 39 states, I believe is the number. So it's a lot of people. Also, gaming generates bricks and mortar. They make an investment in the community when they build casinos. And third, they generate tax revenue for local communities and tribes to reinvest in things like education and infrastructure. And finally, you want gaming to be legitimate. You want people to know the games are fair, that however they bet, they'll get their money back. And so you are protecting the consumer. Now, all of those things are missing when you talk about these prediction markets as opposed to legalized sports betting. They do not pay taxes. They don't build buildings. They don't hire a lot of folks in the communities. They don't give to local charities. And they are not bound by any of the regulations that promote contributions to problem gaming, that deal with money laundering, that provide checks against illegal activities by people in sports, like betting on their own team. None of those safeguards are in place. If you want to have sports betting, fine, but just follow the rules and have a level playing field.
So recently, Congresswoman, the CFTC chairman, Michael Selig, he went out with a pretty strong message to say that and to argue for the fact that CFTC should be the ones that are regulating the prediction market operators, arguing that they have been regulating these type of contracts for many, many years. And he kind of dug his heel into the ground, right, and launched his friend of the court brief to basically say that the CFTC are going to defend the litigation that's happening currently. And he ended that video with a message to those that oppose him, basically saying, "See you in court." So I want to ask you, what is your message to Michael Selig and the CFTC, and why do you think that the CFTC is not equipped to regulate this type of sports contracts?
Well, I have sent this message to him loud and clear through letters and contacts, but let's put all of this in perspective. He's a friend of the president. The president's sons serve on boards of both Kalshi and Polymarket, so there's definitely a conflict of interest there. He said in his confirmation hearings that he intended to follow the regulations and the law, and he wasn't going to get into gambling because they weren't qualified to be a gambling regulator. Those are his own words, and that is absolutely true. This agency has regulated commodities. Now, usually you think of commodities as corn and pork bellies, not as sports betting. So they don't have the expertise. They have diminished in size with all the Doge cuts, so they don't have the resources, and they just have not got any kind of experience in regulating or setting up a federal scheme of regulations that goes nationwide. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, gaming has been left to the states all these years to regulate and to tax, and this overturns that precedent. These are not frivolous regulations that have been put in place. They've been put in place over years with involvement of stakeholders, legislatures, ballot initiatives. Tribes and states have put a lot of thought and effort into these regulations that now you're just going to throw out the window. That just makes no sense to me.
So, Congresswoman, considering the political climate in the U.S. today, with the president obviously having some unprecedented power in the U.S. now, and as you point out, interest as well in the continued kind of survival of the prediction market space. As a Democrat yourself, now trying to fight this movement. What lies ahead in order to get a bill like this passed? It seems almost like fighting a hurricane to some extent. You are taking on big powers here. So can you talk a little bit about how do you plan to get this bill into a legal contract?
Well, I think the old term is tilting at windmills, perhaps, is what you're referring to. But if I weren't an optimist, I wouldn't be in this business. They have hired 2 former legislators to come to the Hill and lobby for them, Kalshi and Polymarket have. But the AGA has now gotten very energized about this. In the beginning, they kind of poo-pooed it because they didn't think it was going anywhere. And then it just took off like gangbusters. So now they're very engaged. They're filing lots of lawsuits, not just Nevada, but some other states have also filed lawsuits. They've hired Governor Christie from New Jersey to be a spokesperson for them. And he's a very powerful spokesperson, and he speaks from experience, having been the governor of a state that early on had gaming, New Jersey. So that's building momentum. And a part of it is just educating people. This has kind of come out of nowhere, and people don't really understand how it works. Gaming overall is complicated, and this makes it even more so. So you got to explain to people kind of what it is, how it works. So you educate while you advocate, and anything we can do just to kind of up the awareness of what this means to the player as well as to the industry and the community. And, the players are starting to get it a little bit, because you're seeing instances where they bet and then the bet is misinterpreted. You saw the example on the Super Bowl where Cardi B bet on whether Cardi B was going to perform at the halftime. Well, she didn't sing, but she was on the stage with Bad Bunny. Now, is that performing? Do you get your money back or not? If they say no, you have no recourse whatsoever. So people are starting to see that maybe there are some problems with it too. And we keep saying, we're not outlawing any of those other frivolous bets. You can still bet on which bird flies off the wire, or is Jesus coming, or will I say something on the floor? That's still okay. It's just the sports betting. And you can still do that if you follow the rules. If you want to offer sports bets, fine. Just follow the rules in the location where they have been set. And, something else is, if we don't stop it now or put some guardrails on now, today it's poker, tomorrow they'll figure out a way, because you can always figure out a way with computers and AI how to do slot machines online or how to play dice online. It will just multiply from here till it covers all of gaming.
Right, and that's of course what's been speculated within the industry as well. Next up could be slot predictions then, for example, or what's stopping you from offering a contract, or which is the next number on a roulette wheel or something along those lines. Congresswoman, I'm interested, you have the midterms coming up in the United States later on in the year. Should either the House and or the Senate falls back to the Democrats, do you think that will give more wind in your sail to make dramatic changes with the CFTC, or is this more a bill that needs to go through the traditional legal routes?
Well, if there will be changes in the CDC, but not until after the presidential election. If we take one house, at least we can stop some of the things that are going on. I don't see this so much as a partisan issue, though, because the Gaming Caucus is bipartisan, and some of the other gaming legislation, like some of the slot limits and the tax deduction, those are bipartisan bills. I see it more of an interest of who's in your district, who you represent, how much happens in the world between now and then. It's a lifetime till the next election. Will there be some more scandals? Will there be some more problems? What's the court going to say? All of those factors will impact, I think, our success. And if states don't have money to spend on their needed services, then they're going to start to maybe get in the fight too and think, well, this is not such a good idea. Let's see how we can rein it in.
Thank you, Congresswoman. So another question is, the likes of DraftKings and FanDuel, you mentioned the American Gaming Association earlier here, who obviously is the lobbying organization that represents the gambling industry in the United States. Traditionally, it's been organizations that have unified the gambling industry and the gambling landscape and worked on a very kind of unison agenda. However, recently the biggest and the second biggest online sports betting operators in the United States, DraftKings and FanDuel, both distanced themselves from the American Gaming Association in order to pursue this sport contract and the prediction market vertical themselves. Is there a risk here that this impacts the industry's ability to pursue a joint agenda, especially with the player safety in mind? It feels a little bit like the American Gaming Association is almost losing its teeth to some extent by losing these two major members.
Well, several things have happened that have impacted the power of the AGA. It used to be that gaming just kind of kept their head down and stayed quiet and just played a little bit of defense, and the AGA serve that purpose. Also, gaming used to be monolithic. Just a few big families, just a couple of states had gaming, so it was easier to be coordinated and on the same page. Now, gaming, like I said, is everywhere practically, except for Hawaii and Utah. Gaming now includes tribes as well as big casinos, hometown small casinos, little riverboats in the Middle West versus big casinos on the Strip. So it's much more diverse, and that makes it more difficult for the association to represent all the interests. So it's become divided. And also in relation to that proliferation, you've got gaming where it can no longer have the luxury of just playing defense. It's got to be out there on the front lines, whether you're talking about tax policy or you're talking about regulation or you're talking about scandal when it comes to sports players. So now they are more in the mix. They haven't adjusted to that very well. When I started talking about some of these issues, they were kind of discouraging, kind of like, well, just don't make too much noise. But now they realize that that strategy is not going to work. And so they've got to figure out how to come together to represent all the different gaming interests and realize what kind of opposition they're up against with an organization like Kalshi or Polymarket that is just going gangbusters into their whole domain, I guess.
Brilliant. And I want to talk a little bit about the reactions online to the launch of this bill. You know, you obviously are championing a second bill as well, which is called the Fair Bets Act, which is tackling the 90% tax deduction issue. And I want to ask about that too. But when you launched that Fair Bets Act, you had a lot of support, from most people. However, when you announced the Fair Markets and Sports Integrity Act, it seemed like there was a lot of resistance in social media and so on. And I think the main kind of criticism, if you will, is from individuals who feel like this is just the next natural evolution in technology, and regulators seem to, by default, always be against technology before it is adopted. So I just wanted to ask you, to those that are kind of arguing that point, what do you say to them?
Well, you're right. There was a lot of reaction because there's a lot of overlap with the people who bet on Kalshi and the people who talk on Twitter. So, it's some of that same crowd. And they like it. They enjoy doing it. It's easy. There's no regulation. They don't have to go to a casino to cast a bet. Maybe the odds are a little better because Kalshi doesn't have to follow any of the rules. So these people like to be able to do that. First thing you have to say is, look, we're not outlawing it. We're not messing with any of those peripheral votes. We're not saying Kalshi can't exist. We're not even saying Kalshi can't do sports betting. Just follow the rules. Furthermore, if you looked at the argument put forth by the gentleman you were just talking about, the head of the agency, they talked about, these are talking points he's just spitting out. They talked about innovation and diversification. They never mentioned sports betting. And so I think that was misleading to the folks who think we're trying to outlaw it. But the fact is, if you have some protections in place and some regulation, that promotes competition, that encourages diversification, and it leads to more innovation. So I would take just the opposite approach of what the consequences of a statute like this would be.
So on the other hand, then, the Fair Bets Act, as you mentioned, got a lot of support when this was announced. And this is, again, kind of addressing the tax deduction issue that came with the Big Beautiful Bill recently. Talk about a little bit more deeper about the bill and the issue that is trying to address.
Well, when the big, beautiful bullshit, I call it, bill passed out of the House, it did not have that provision in it. It was added in the Senate. It came back to the House. Now, there is still a bias against gaming. So you have to look at every tax bill, especially the money bills, very carefully to see that something about gaming isn't snuck in there. And sure enough, it turned out there was kind of a middle of the night insertion of a provision that said no longer could you deduct 100% of your losses. You could only deduct 90% of your losses. Now, they were looking for money to patch up a hole they were creating with the tax break for billionaires, and they estimated that over 10 years, that provision would bring in $1 billion. So they put it in there. It was also put in by Senator Crapo, who is notoriously anti-gaming anyway, so it really wasn't a surprise. When we found that, we said, no, this is ridiculous. if you lose $100,000, you should be able to deduct $100,000, not 90%, because that means you'd have to pay tax on $10,000 that you never even earned. It's like ghost money or phantom money. And that's just not fair, whether you're a gamer or whoever you might be. And when we first found it and started to talk about it, they said, oh, that's just professional poker players that'll be affected by that. Well, it turns out that was not the case. It was anybody who bets on a football game or goes to the Las Vegas for the weekend and plays a little blackjack or a slot machine. Anybody is affected by that. And so the internet just went wild. I got over 1 million responses to that, which, I mean, if you're a Swiftie crowd, that's not a lot, but if you're me, that's quite a lot. And I didn't realize how many people would be affected or would care about this. So we've got a lot of support on this, and we've got more bipartisan co-sponsors, commitments from Republicans saying, yeah, we need to fix this. We didn't even know that was in there. We didn't know how that worked. Oh, yeah, we need to fix it. But the politics have gotten in the way of the policy.
And can you give a status update on where that bill is currently? And again, just if you could talk a little bit more about what your expectation is from that bill.
Well, we introduced it as a standalone bill. 2 or 3 other members have introduced the same bill just because they want something with their name on it. One on by somebody from Kentucky running for governor there because the horse race people want to see this passed. So there are several standalone bills out there. In addition, we tried to get it into the appropriations bill as an amendment, but the Rules Committee wouldn't accept it. They accepted no amendments. We're looking for other vehicles to hang it on if there's another CR, or at the end of the term, there's what they called an extenders bill that kind of cleans up some of the tax policy. It's like a Christmas tree. A lot of things can get hung on it. We can do that. In the meantime, I just last week introduced a discharge petition. And how that works is that it forces a committee to release a bill to the floor. Now, my bill's been sitting in Ways and Means since June, and they keep saying, yeah, we need to fix it, but they won't ever bring it up for a hearing or for a vote. A discharge petition would get around that process. You've got to get some signatures on there. Whether we'll get them or not, I don't know, but it's one more vehicle or one more mechanism or one more opportunity to generate attention to the issue. And I've been calling on the people who are following this, and you'd think it would have subsided a bit, but it's not. It's growing because it's becoming more imminent. Call your congressperson, call them and tell them to vote to get this out, sign that discharge petition, and let's get moving.
Brilliant, Congresswoman. And I guess my final question here today is, have you been in touch with the prediction market operators or kind of that side of the aisle and try to have a constructive conversation with that side of the fence? Are they interested in kind of trying to work with you or to work together, or is this not the route to take?
Well, we've had some good conversations with Mr. Christie on this side of things, and we cleared with him what the AGA thought about us introducing the bill. We have also reached out to John Patrick Maloney, who served in the Congress as a Democrat with me, to say, if you're representing these folks, come and see us. Let's talk about what's going on. We haven't heard back from him.
Brilliant. Congresswoman, thank you so much for your time and for diving deeper into the bills that you have launched. We are looking forward to follow them with interest, and I wish you all the best.
Well, let's stay in touch as things develop.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.